Hello students! Welcome to week 2 of your Practical Research 1 course. Lesson 6 is about characteristics, strengths, weaknesses, and kinds of qualitative research. In the activity portion, you have to answer the following questions briefly. Number 1, given the chance to research, would you right away choose qualitative research? Give reasons for your answer. Number 2, if you will do a qualitative research about the area in which your house is situated, what could be your research problem or topic? 1 to 2 sentences will do. Let us talk about the characteristics and uses of qualitative research. Number 1, the research takes place in a natural setting. It can be a home, an office, an institution, or a community where human behavior and events occur. This enables the researcher to be immersed in the actual experiences of the research participants and to get as much detailed data as he or she needs. Number 2, the focus of qualitative research is on the participants' perceptions and experiences and the way they make sense of their lives. So compared to quantitative research, which gets numerical data in figures, here in qualitative research, the researcher observes the participants' perceptions and experiences. It could be an interview or an observation. The methods are interactive and humanistic. It calls for active participation of research participants and on the part of the researcher, sensitivity to the needs of the participants. Number 4, it uses various ways of collecting data. As I've said, qualitative research uses observation, structured or semi-structured interviews. When we say structured interviews, there are a set of standard questions that the interviewer needs to ask to the participants, while a semi-structured interview can still ask other questions aside from the set of standard questions the interviewer has. It uses documents, and now it uses emails, blogs, videos, stills, and a host of others. Number 5, qualitative research results being emergent. New discoveries during the data gathering process can lead to a total revision of research questions, among others. So, qualitative research can still be revised. Number 6, the theory or general pattern of understanding will emerge as it begins with initial codes, develops into broad themes, and combines into a ground theory or broad interpretation. That is according to Creswell in 2003. So, qualitative research uses codes. You cannot reveal the information about the participants, so you code them. And then, once you gather the data, you will thematize their answers and you will produce themes out of that data. Or, you're going to prove a theory or create a new theory based on that interpretation. Number 7, it is fundamentally interpretative. So this includes a description of an individual or setting, analyzing data for themes or categories, and finally making an interpretation or drawing conclusions about its meaning personally and theoretically, the lessons learned, and offering further questions to be asked. Number 8, the researcher may filter data through a personal lens that is situated in specific socio-political and historical moments. So there's really a possibility for qualitative researches to be subjective because it asks for personal interpretation. One cannot escape the personal interpretation brought to qualitative data analysis. So since you do not have figures or numbers, you have to draw interpretation from words. And that can really be subjective, but that's okay. Number 9, the researcher is a primary instrument in the data collection. If the survey and the numbers, figures, or the instrument in the quantitative research. Here, in qualitative research, the researcher who is making the interpretation is a primary instrument. So he or she views social phenomena holistically. It looks at the different aspects of the variable chosen. The more complex, interactive, and encompassing the narrative, the better is a qualitative study. Next, let us go to strengths of qualitative research. Number 1, qualitative research can offer the best light on or best answers to certain phenomena, social, economic, political, or even psychological. So in these areas, it is best to use qualitative research. Number 2, it offers several avenues to understand phenomena, behavior, human conditions, and the like. Number 3, research results are comprehensive, even underlying meanings surface. So aside from discussing the variable, it also looks at its relationship to other variables. Number 4, it can build on or even develop theories through consistent themes, categories, relationships, and interrelationships that are crystallized during the data gathering and data analysis process. So it creates themes and concepts. Lastly, it adopts a naturalistic approach to its subject matter, which means that those involved in the research understand things on what they find meaningful. Now let us go to the weaknesses of qualitative research. Number 1, total immersion in the natural setting of the research can be time-consuming, tedious, and resource-draining. A qualitative researcher has to immerse his or herself in the natural setting of his chosen variable, and that needs time. So if you are patient enough, then you can do qualitative research. But if you wanted to get results at an instant, then maybe you can just give out a survey, so that becomes a quantitative research. Number 2, it is hard to know the validity and reliability. Since you are interviewing, doing observations, or making meaning out of available data or document, then you can know the validity and reliability, unlike in quantitative research where you can test the validity and reliability of your instrument because there is pilot testing. When we say validity, your instrument measures what it needs to measure. For example, you are studying coping strategies, then your survey instrument should really examine coping strategies. Now, we can say that an instrument is reliable when the data doesn't change through time. After a year, if the data is still low, then the instrument is reliable because the data did not change through time. Number 3, there comes a point when the personal self and the researcher self are inseparable, so subjectivity can happen. Now, to prevent this, the researcher must identify his or her personal values, assumptions, and biases. There are 6 kinds of qualitative research. First is ethnography. It refers to a systematic description of a culture and social interactions of a particular group, setting, or subgroup. This involves extensive immersion in a particular setting. If there is a need to go to a particular setting of your respondents, then you have to go there. That is ethnography. For example, you have to study gangs and drug dealers. You have to go to their areas and talk to them personally, of psychiatric patients, of people with disabilities, about schools or school children with special needs. Second is grounded theory. It refers to theory that is developed inductively from a corpus of data. It is an approach for developing theory that is grounded in data systematically gathered and analyzed. For example, you are studying about pain relief. Now, your theory is that pain relief is a major problem when you have arthritis. Sometimes the pain is worse than the other times, but when it gets really bad, it hurts so bad. You don't want to get out of bed, you don't feel like doing anything. Any relief you get from drugs that you take is only temporary or partial. Third is phenomenology. It describes and understands the essence of lived experiences of individuals who have experienced a particular phenomenon. Usually, the data gathering method here is observation and a semi-structured interview. For example, the title of your study is Lived Experience of Professional Women as They Plan for Retirement. You do not need a survey for this, but you have to talk to professional women who are about to retire. Fourth is a case study. Case study is conducting in-depth study of a particular case or several cases. For example, you might study a child with a particular type of learning disability. Fifth is historical analysis. This is the examination of primary documents to make you understand the connection of past events to the present. For example, the changes in the economic aspect of the Philippines over a period of time. So here you have to read a lot of documents, books, and journals to support your claim. Lastly, we have content and discourse analysis. This is a method of qualitative research that requires an examination of the substance or content of the mode of communication. For example, letters, books, journals, photos, video recordings, SMS text messages, online messages, emails, audiovisual material, and many more, used by a person, group, organization, or any institution in communicating. For example, error recognition from a written composition of students in a particular level. Let us try to answer abstraction. Here you have to name the type of qualitative research best suited for the following topics. Number 1, the Mangyan's burial practices. Of course, this is an example of ethnography because it studies about Mangyans culture, specifically their burial practices. Number 2, relatives of typhoon victims. This is an example of a phenomenological qualitative research. You would like to know what happened in that specific phenomenon, which is the typhoon. Number 3, the effectiveness of the K-12 curriculum. This is an example of a case study. So you would like to know the effectiveness of the specific case, which is the K-12 curriculum. Number 4, Spider-Man, the very first film in the 21st century, is a content and discourse analysis because it would like to analyze the content of the film Spider-Man. Number 5, Philippines' political party system, then and now, is an obvious example of a historical qualitative research. It probably discusses what happened before and then now in the present. Number 6, Filipino caregivers in Japan is an example of phenomenological study. Why? Because it most probably interviews people or Filipino caregivers about the challenges, how they got into Japan, and how they're working with the Japanese people. Number 7, travails of senior citizens at the LRT or MRT stations is an example of a grounded theory. So this is something that you have to support. You have to prove because this is a theory. Number 8 is the lone grade 6 speed reader of UST High School. So from the word lone, there is just one. Or it is very frequent that there is a speed reader who is in grade 6 studying in UST High School. Most probably, this one must be a case study because there's only one speed reader. Number 9, grade 11 science textbook. This is an example of a content and discourse analysis. Obviously, because it examines the content of a science textbook. Lastly, number 10, student activism since the Marcos era. The keyword there is Marcos era. So number 10 is an example of a historical qualitative research. On the last part, we have the application where you have to answer briefly on your paper the following 6 questions. Number 1, what are the characteristics of qualitative research? You just have to go back to the analysis part to answer this one. Number 2, what are the strengths? Number 3, what are the weaknesses of qualitative research? Number 4, how is ground theory different from other qualitative research methods? Number 5, can all research methods be used in one research study? Is that even possible? Then you have to give reasons for your answer. Number 6, pretend that you are the subject of a phenomenological study. How will the researcher obtain the data through you? That's all for lesson 6. Thank you for watching.